Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be doing the handlebars as mentioned on one of my previous videos with the Hayabusa. It's got the high bars on it at the moment, so what I need to do, actually find my tools first. There we go. Is remove the high bars and put the standard ones on, which are where. Oh yeah, there we go. So I've got the standard bars as the standard clip-ons. So there we go, all the bits in there for it. So as you can see, it's got the high bars. Very simple. Way I'm going to do it first is, I don't know which way. Actually, I'm going to take these off because I think he mentioned these might be glued on. If that's the case, I might have to wait actually, but we'll see. And then remove these, move that out of place, and then it's a simple case of that's actually loose. I've just done that with my hands. That's actually loose, and then you've got the pinch bolts in there, and then that top clamp comes off for the top yoke there. There's two under here with spacers holding the ignition barrel on, and then everything just lifts off and then replaced. So it's actually very straightforward, but we'll do it bit by bit and we'll see where we're at with it. Right, so thankfully I don't think it's glued on. I've just twisted the whole grip and it seems to be working its way off. Firstly, all I've done is just taken the end out of there, just the normal Phillips head, screwed that out the front there, and popped that off, so keep them to one side. So now I'm just going to try and work this grip off, see if it'll come off easily. Alright, so a little bit tricky, but after some persuasion it has popped off, and there was a little bit of glue of some sort on there, so keep that to one side because we will need that to put onto the actual clip-on. So once you get this one, that's the hardest part, to get that off because it might be glued on. Then what I'm going to do is undo these clamps here to lift the handlebars up. That way I can get a screwdriver. I did have a stubby one to get under there. You can do it, but I can't reach because there's not enough room. So unfortunately that's fine. But what I'm going to do is take the actual bars off here by the clamps, so the bars are loose, and that way I can remove these afterwards. Just get the other ones in place first. Alright, so I'm going to remove this. I've just put my coat over the top of the tank just in case you drop anything, because even a small bolt drops onto there, you're gonna mark it in some way, and it's we don't want to do that. So it's a good idea just to wrap it up, make sure it's safe. There we go. As the last one comes out, they will now be free. Put them to one side. They can go back in the box, as well as the actual handlebars themselves. Just put them to one side for now, and then the lower mounts as well. Move them out of the way, and that frees up the access to the upper yoke, the top yoke. So we're going to replace this. This is the aftermarket one. We're going to replace that with the original. So what I'm going to do, just to make it easier, is remove the clutch lever and the brake lever. I'll have these two 8mm, so I'm going to remove those two, get rid of them so they're out of the way, and then I can use the Phillips screwdriver at the bottom of these and remove them as well, and eliminate them so we can remove the handlebars completely. Right, so they're off now, out of the way, just free of the thing, so free of the bar. So I'm going to remove these now, slide them off on both sides, same with the throttle, and then put the screws back in so we don't lose any components on the inside. Eliminate the handlebars, and then we'll get cracking with the top yoke. So when you loosen these, they don't need to be fully removed, just loosened. That should give you enough room to then sort of wiggle it off. There might be a locating dowel of and a hole there, just so it might need to come sort of separate slightly, but we'll see. It's loosened off, so I'm going to try and slide it off just like that, but we'll see now. So yeah, that's right, that just simply, once it's loosened, it just slides off. Of course, remember to remove the end, otherwise it ain't going anywhere. But yeah, once it's loose, slides right off, no problem at all. And then same again with that one, once it's loosened off, it will like come off, and here the handlebars free. So now we'll get cracking with that top yoke. Right, so on this one here, it is slightly different to the standard one, but on here you've got the two hex nuts on the back, or hex bolts, on both sides. These are pinch bolts, so we're going to loosen these off, and then that should then be able to tap that up and remove it. Just make, when you're removing this, the gold nut here from the top there, it's got a small washer underneath it, so just make note of that. This should then just simply wobble and come up. When it's free, there is 2 bolts holding this in place. The aftermarket kit, there is spacers under here, but with the standard one there aren't, so just make note of the spacers. I don't know if you can just about see it through the screen here. So the spacers are there. The actual one's missing on that side, only because the bolt bent, so we'll have to just sort something out with that. And that is it, that is removed, as simple as that. So there's the barrel, the bolt comes underneath. Of course I've only got one, but that's it with the spacer. We don't need the spacer, we just need the bolt. And then these aftermarket kit that can go back in the box for a rainy day, or when I'm old. Or if I actually don't like that, I will put this back on, but we'll see. I want to check it out anyway because it looks so much better, and of course it's got Hayabusa written on it. So we have here the standard setup. So that's the top yoke clamp there, and then this bolts on top of that. Now I don't know how this setup works. I'm just sort of looking at it. There's the clutch cable as well. Sorry, the choke cable, because the choke was he didn't get a longer cable for this setup, so unfortunately he's been running the bike with no choke cable, so I want to get that put back on as well. So get this set on first. You've got 2 these, I don't know what they are, sort of spacers I guess, one with a sleeve and it fits on top there, so we'll get that in place now. So just want to note with this, make your life a bit easier, the ignition barrel, get that bolted on first. You can do it once it's already in place, but it's a bit of a faff getting the bolts up in there. So yeah, easier to get that done first. Once that's on and tightened up, I don't even know if they're the right bolts. Pretty sure they are, but everything's just mixed, so I'm just going to have to sort of work it out as I go along. But once that's done, then we're going to get this then in place. Okay, once it's on, it's not actually on, you need to sort of tap it. I'm going to get sort of a soft mallet if I can, just give it a knock until the forks are sort of roughly 2 mil, I would say, above the top of the upper clamp, so you know it's sort of in place then. Okay, so that's just put that in place. I tried to sort of bang this down as much as it would go. Of course you can see there is a little bit of a lip, 2 mil. I wanted the forks to come through further, but I've noticed that underneath here there's a spacer of some description, so that won't actually go any further. I don't know if that's supposed to actually be there, so I need to have a look and see, because I don't think it is, not for this setup anyway. Alright, so I've had a look. I do believe it is supposed to be there, but I'm not 100% sure, so if it's not, I can always just whip them off and remove it. I'm going to get pliers now, just tighten this one up and then put the pinch bolts in, and then that'll be in place. It is more than secure, I just don't really, I'm not too sure on this, so if anybody knows, then yeah, please let me know. Spacer. Right, so I'm going to leave that how it is for now, and then try and seek some advice and see, because it won't be too difficult once it's all mounted. I can just simply pop it off, lift it up, and sort it out. So that's nipped up now. I'm going to put the pinch bolts in on either side, get them tightened up, and then get the main mount on top of that. Okay, so they're in, tightened up. That's not going to go anywhere. It's more than on there, more than adequate. So I'm going to get these, I don't even know, I guess they're bushes. I don't know which way, whether it's up or like that, so I don't think it matters, because they do look the same. So I'm going to go put them up and then put the small one on top, maybe see if that works. Okay, they're in place. Very simple to do. So now it's the case of putting the actual plate on. I've put the the bars in the clip-on, they just simply slide in there, and then you've got those bolts there to tighten them up. So yeah, we'll get them on. I'm going to put the coat back over the tank there, just in case, because the last thing I want is to start dropping anything on there. There we go. Beautiful, just a little extra protection. So yeah, I'll get that in place. I do believe that's the next job. What I'm going to do though, while it's off, in fact, put on the lights and the switches and the levers, because it might be a bit tricky. So we'll get that done now, restore them, and then we'll get it in place. Right. So those both sides are on now. The notice on this one, there is a locator hole, so somewhere in that I've had to loosen both of these off slightly more, because it seems like the diameter of this bar is slightly bigger than the other one. So note the locator hole there. This will have possibly a dowel inside it, so find it, wiggle it, get it into place. So we'll do that now and get them tightened up. Sorry, I'm just going to scratch that last bit. I'm not going to tighten these up just yet. I just remembered I need to put the choke cable in place. So in fact, I'm going to need to split this apart to put the choke cable back in place, because that's dead at the moment. It's not doing anything. And then I will find it afterwards. So I'm going to leave them loose for now. And once it's all in place, I can sort of slide them on and get everything tightened up nice and snug. Just want to know with these, is there either a little directional thing saying up? Make sure the arrow and that up is up. Okay, not particularly sure why, but just listen to it anyway. That is what I've done, is I've actually put this plate on top first. It will make it a bit easier. So they just got the 4 big bolts, and then you've got 4 nuts underneath it, so I'll tighten them down in a minute. But now I'll just get these in place, to make it a little bit easier. It doesn't really matter which way you do this. It can be sort of whatever you find easiest, but I'm just sort of doing it as I go along. I've got no instructions how to put this back together. I'm sort of kind of guessing, but sort of process of elimination with these bolts of what fits where. So yeah, it's just a matter of guessing really, but it seems to be going well so far. So we'll see how the end result is. Right, I must apologise for the abrupt ending to the previous video. It is actually a new day now. Unfortunately, my phone battery died, so I couldn't continue. But I've not really gone much further to where we left off. But what I've done off camera is I've almost fitted the grip, just tightened everything up, make sure it was all neat. I put this one into place as well, but I'm going to have to sort of redo this one. As you can see, that is tight, but there's a gap, so it's not mounted properly. I don't know why. It was when I originally put it on, but it's obviously come apart, so I'll have to have a look at that. And also the throttle, it's a bit of an issue. It's on, sits in place, this is on, it's nice, there's no big gaps, but if I twist the throttle, it sort of sticks slightly. So if you see that, it's not, I don't particularly like it. It's not. And if I move these around at the back, the cables, it can make it even worse. So I'm just going to take it off, have a little look and have a play and see. But apart from that, I know it's gone on quite nicely, so quite happy so far. So what I'm actually going to do in order to get to the book, because it's very tight between, even with a stubby screwdriver, it's a bit difficult to get to the Phillips screws under here. So I'm just going to remove the clip on. It's quite easy to do. You have to remove the lever, the master cylinder itself, because it's the hex bolts at the back here are not accessible with this on. So just need to remove that, and then you're able to get to the access point behind it. Again, the outer one, I forget this right now. Yeah, the outer one needs to be removed entirely, but the inner one just loosened. That way it'll slide out, because there is a little groove in this. As I think I don't know if I did actually. There's a groove in this, it's sort of the bolt fits into. So like I say, the outer one has to be removed entirely for the slip-on to come out. Just want to note. Right, so just by playing around with it, it seems it's the location of the actual cable itself rather than anything internal. because it is sticky there. I can feel it's quite tough, but if I remove it completely and sort of spin it up here, I can't do this with two hands, but it is free. So I'm just going to have to sort of look at the routing and see if we can play around with these a little bit to try and work out what's the best point to put them in. Alright, so just by looking at it, I do believe this part of the cable is supposed to be on this side of the fork, because if you do, as soon as you do that, it's sort of kinking the cable a bit there, and when it's there, it's loose. So I feel if this was on the opposite side, it would be free. So I may have to just sort of might be able to get that through and sort of loop it around somehow, but we'll have a play and have a look. Right, unfortunately I'm going to have to remove it, see if it'll come off as a 1. But yeah, unfortunately that cable there, so one to note, the accelerator cables, throttle cables need to be on the inside of the right hand fork, otherwise they're going to kink too much. So they were obviously repositioned for the other one because they were higher up, so I guess sort of up here somewhere it gave it more flex, I don't know. But they need to be down here, and of course, as you can see, squashing. So we're just going to have to try and do that as quickly as we can and cut back. So what I've done there is to remove the whole thing. You don't have to unbolt all the top bit here. All you need to do is undo the pinch bolts and then the center one there, and then this unit will lift up. Of course, when you put it back in, push it all down as the one and make sure it's all the way home. Pinch bolts up, that one back on, and that's fine. So it does make it a little bit easier. So that's now behind, so you can already see it's not got as much flex. So I'll get this tightened up in place, and then hopefully see it's kicking back already, which is good. So far so good. We'll see. Right, much better. So that's now routed behind the forks there on the inside. These are all tight. Throttle's giving a good flick, which is nice. That's all tight. So now we just need to, of course, get the master cylinder back on there. And we'll have a look at this side, see what's going on here, but then that's it. It should be done. We'll just double check everything's tightened, so we'll get that cracked. So I'm just giving this master cylinder a bit of a clean up. Oh, is that focused? Oh yeah, a bit of rust and calcification around the edges here, and the brake lever itself when pushing is a bit notchy. So I suspect it's sticking, so I'm just giving it a bit of a clean WD-40, and then once it's on, we'll get some movement in it and hopefully smooth it out a little bit. Yeah, so once you've found a good position, a nice position for your master cylinder to go, of course, plug it in, the electrical cable, plug it in first whilst it's up, because if it's down it can be a bit tricky. So while it's loose, get that plugged in, position it, and when you're happy, give it a nice tighten up. Right, so I've sorted the issue of why that wasn't sitting basically on this clip-on. Sort of around here there is actually a small hole in it. It's a locator. I did mention it previously, but I just must have forgotten. But basically inside this there's a little like a lug, like a little dowel sort of thing. It'll sit in the hole. Of course, if it's not in the hole, it's not going to sit on properly, so it can only really go on one way. Loosen it off, wiggle it around until it sits in, and of course it clamps. I mean, this Phillips head is absolutely knackered. I've done what I can with it. It needs to be replaced because it's very difficult. It's got a bit of grip left on it, but barely any. So as you can see, it's nice and closed now, so that can go back on, and we'll tighten everything up, and that should be it. Right, so that is now back in place. This is on. The only thing, that locator I mentioned, unfortunately it sent it over here somewhere, so I don't really know, I don't understand. It's on and it's tight. Only issue is it does move, so I'll have to get something to stop it, which isn't an issue. It's just when you choke on and choke off, as you can see, it moves. So I'll get something to lock it in place. This one's spot on. Everything's on now. Throttle's doing its thing. So I'll double check everything's tightened up, and I think that's it. That's all done. Only thing is, I'm going to sort of keep my eye on that. If you can see, it's sort of a couple of mils from the top. There's a bit of thread exposed with that spacer underneath. Yeah, I'm just going to do a bit of research just to double check. But if anyone is aware and anyone knows if that spacer above the two big nuts there is supposed to be there, please let me know. If not, then I will certainly lift the whole thing off, remove that, put it down, and then of course that will be onto the forks a little bit more. But yeah, I'm just gonna wrap it there. Don't need to do any more. That's it, sorted. So that is essentially how you get the handlebars back on. Apologies for the dithering around a little bit. I mean, that's the first time I've done it. I had no instructions, so it's just sort of going off. I guess use a bit of common sense just to sort of work things out, but that's it, pretty straightforward. So we'll double check everything's tightened up, like I say, and then jobs are good. And so thank you very much for watching. Certainly brings out much better looking. But thank you very much for watching. See you later.